going to pick up a bit more of the duos for those of you who were in touch not before last. But there's the things that are apparently all-inclusive and minimally inclusive, and this not being some philosophical incursion into the questions of why there are so many dichotomies, or if this dichotomy is indeed correctly adjudicated and described. Nay, nay. The greater question is, to what end is this being perpetrated on man, that it seems necessary that there be two divisions, that there be two, there's a duo in any field, or else the field doesn't exist, and there doesn't seem to be room, need for any further possibility. And can you take the other step right quick? Why everything I just said seems to be that way, when life could make it otherwise. I could make it all be one, I could make it all be three. Even those of you who don't have that right kind of relationship yet with life, surely theoretically you agree that if it can make everything be in duos, it could make everything be in one O's and three O's. It could make man suddenly become deaf, dumb, blind, so we wouldn't have to talk about it. Life could turn everybody into a cyclops. That'd be it. So back to where we were, realizing all the possible ways that you could go with this. Some of the duos that I didn't get around to the other night. The great set, that great act of wants and needs. The ones I'm going to mention tonight, if I don't change my mind, I want you to try and consider also sort of a side effect of how they are apparently related to other people's relationship to you and your apparent relationship to yourself. That all of these, which I could have done the other night, but all these I can point, or at least hint to you, that one of the duos is absolutely dependent upon other people apparently being involved in some manner with you and the situation. And apparently the other one would be possible to operate without the participation, without the impression of other people being involved. So how about wants and needs? That you would think that immediately, perhaps you would think, that the wants in life is that which would keep you alive. That you would have to call everything that would sustain life at the bare biological level would have to be wants. And then you could say, all right, needs, and then you'd have to say that wants then are going to have to be anything other than that. All the superficial, the superfluous, of wanting a car, wanting a new toupee, wanting to have your nose fixed, wanting to have a new dress, wanting to have a new suit. Now, wouldn't you say that? Everyone's nervous system would, once I point out this fine duo of wants and needs, you would have to say, all right, needs has got to be absolutely what it says. They have got to be needs. Well, I could call them necessities, but that's what I meant. This is what you need to stay alive, but you do not need a goddamn nose job or a new rug to stay alive. Oh yeah? Is that true? You do not have to have a new wardrobe to stay alive. You do not have to have a new car. You don't have to have a car. We could all run back and start a commune and go back to nature. Unless somebody told me that nature left all this part of the world back in the late 60s when they closed up all that nature went with them. So I don't know. But at any rate, you do see, I'm not just here to make jokes, am I? That if we've got this great division, which is natural, which I did not make up, of wants and needs, then the wants would be that which would be the absolute bare minimum to keep you alive, you or anyone. And that anything other than that would have to fall into the category of mere wants. It might be serious wants, and you might want to hold your breath and stamp your feet, but they are still wants nonetheless. Clear division. I say nay, nay. Could you live, could the nervous system of anyone in this city, this state, this part of life's body known as this part of the world, could anybody right now survive and pass off as being in the middle class, in the middle of the bell curve of city people? Would you appear to be a real, dyed-in-the-wool, stalwart trooper, marcher for life, if all you had was what you needed to stay alive? Everybody think about it a second. You might also note, I can note for you, that many of you have believed in the past, and some of you may believe that I've hinted at it. You believed wrong, if that was as far as you took it, but many of you probably in the past believed that you would have been better off if you could have dumped all your possessions and gone and joined a commune before they all went away, and just got back and planted your own sweet potatoes, maybe a little okra and a little pot, and maybe some hops and rice in case you want something to drink, and not have any cars, no electricity, no cleaning bills, no nothing, right? But notice, many of you had that dream. Notice, you had the dream. But remember what I pointed out, a kind of non-sarcastic, if you could see it, mockery of what people are driven to pretend that they should be doing and actually what they do. Please note, none of you people did that. And don't any of you tell me, well, yeah, I went and tried it. Yeah, but you didn't do it. You may have gone and joined a commune for a while. Your car may have broken down sometime coming out of Eugene, Oregon, or outside Sacramento, and you were broke. In the car, you only paid $50 for it anyway, and you went, ha, I suddenly see the light. I don't need a car. And you started thumbing. You know, don't tell me that. That doesn't count. And don't tell me about you went and joined a commune. It turned out that they actually had a TV hidden up in the big house. The thing is, I wanted you to see, is that people do not do that. Those who do it are way beyond the fringe. They just do not even really count in the general survey, in the general census of life's body. That is, people who could, people who do, get to the level that you could look at everything, all of their behavior. That's all we'd have to look at. You don't have to look at their intent or what they're thinking about. Look at their behavior, and all you would see is that they are dealing with with needs. That is all that they're dealing with. They eat, they stay out of the cold, and that's it. They're back to almost prehistoric times. You do not see people doing that. If you find anybody doing that, and they was really desperate for a news show, it might get a minute on the news show about, hey, how about this guy? Plus, it also doesn't count because if he would agree to be on the show, then he'd have something to say about it, so it really doesn't count. I said all you had to do was look at behavior, but I got to take that away from you because if the guy would talk about it and tell why he did it, see, he's already past his needs. Because you don't need to tell why you're doing that, do you? That's right, because you people understood there was a clear distinction. Could you distinguish anymore, before I keep apparently making you laugh at this, could you actually distinguish anymore right now between your wants and your needs? Again, I could suggest I could speak for you right quick for your nervous system and say that my actual needs, the necessities to stay alive, if we're going to get that chintzy about it, would I have to have water, I would have to have food, and I would have to have some sort of environment to which my body could adapt itself without either freezing to death or my blood boiling. But other than that, if we're going to talk like that, that is all I need. Okay. Then everything else would have to go in this duo would have to go into the column of my wants, my desires. But now I ask you to consider again, not your kind of dreamy noises the nervous system can make back at the city level, but right now I'm trying to ask you at a little better position. Could you live like that? Do you think that life needs people to live like that? That should be easy to answer the way I've been trying to teach you people to come look over here a little bit. All you got to do is look around and see how many people are doing that. You don't know anybody. So there's your answer. Life does not have a great need for it. I think we're safe in saying that. So where does that leave you with the list of the division between your necessities, your needs, and what you want? I ask you, again from night before last, do you see that there is no clear place to cut it? And yet if you don't look at it a certain way, you would think that there are places in all of these to make a clear cut, that there has got to be a difference. In fact, I started out, it seems like 2 minutes ago, I was playing the part of ordinary consciousness, but I had detailed a pretty fair description of just that in the column of needs is that which would keep you physically alive. And anything that did not absolutely fall by necessity into that column would be wants. And that seemed clear enough wherever I was going with it. But now do you see that it's not that clear? Where are you going to cut it? Because you can say your own nervous system, which I was trying to speak for in general. You can say, all right, there is such a division, and I heard it. You're right. You could distinguish it that way. But look around. Does life distinguish that, at least in this part of the world, and not in most parts of the world? But it is distinguished in that way in such a manner that is operational. That is, do you see people living on that basis? No. You just do not. If they are not living that way, then where is the divining line? Is it still extant? What was the original purpose? Did men believe that? To what ends do you still believe that at your ordinary level? Unless I've gotten you where you should, if any of you who are listening, that you're temporarily confused, disoriented just for a second. Like, well, I understood where it was at the line, but you're right. That can't be true. Right. To what ends does life still have people believe that? To what ends do people? To themselves. One generation to the next. Father to a son. To a daughter. Don't keep bugging me about a new Corvair. A new Camaro. You don't need that. I bought you that truck. Go out and get yourself. You do not need that, and don't drive me crazy. Or you don't need a brand new dress for this upcoming dance. You realize I had to sell some of my fishing equipment to buy you the one for that last dance. You do not need it. You don't understand the value of money, etc. You have men doing it through their wives. You have wives with their own version about don't be like that. All across the world you have people attempting and apparently succeeding from one view. You got to take one position to see it. Not just cars, not just prom dresses, but getting into the idea, in the world of ideas, beliefs, theories, religions, that one person tells another one, hey, you don't need that religion. You don't need those kind of foolish beliefs. You people in some way got distracted. You got disoriented yourself without his help. You got disoriented, and now you just simply want it. You people don't need this additional land over here. You simply want it. You don't need another political party to have any power, even the potential power here. It's just a bunch of you guys, all you want to do is get in here and stuff your cheeks at the public trough like the rest of them. You're not talking about anything that's needed here. We're just talking about some of you, some individual or some group of you, what you want. Anytime you do not like something, back at city level now, anytime you do not like something, anything that you do not agree with, anything that is not up your alleyway as a hobby, is a what? It is a trinket. It is a hobby to someone else. It is an avocation, and a pretty tenuous and weak one at that, for anyone to say, well, I insist I've got to have so-and-so, whether it be a friend, whether it be your family, or whether you simply hear a stranger announce, I cannot live without so-and-so. And it is beyond the bailiwick of any of your interests, then to you it's what? To say the very least, to be charitable to you, well, sir, that's what you desire. That's something, you know, you got a wild hair up your ass and you say you want it, but don't snap here hollering, we need this, I need this. My close associates, we need this thing. We need this opportunity. Your opinion is, no, you don't. The nervous system, again, this great way in which it's constructed, even believes that that is not coming from their nervous system. That's not genetic. They picked that up somewhere. They got that from, let's see, they got that from their cultural environment. Ha! So that proves they don't need it. I never have laid on that one. It's how the nervous system is already arranged to believe that it is not the source of everything. It's just wonderful. But the nervous system itself is why I stand here sometimes, I guess I'm like a Baptist preacher. I know I do, I don't guess. Pointing out there is no out there. The reason I keep doing it is your nervous system is made to believe. I'm doing worse than if I had a group of still dyed-in-the-wool religious people here and I announced that atheism is it. There is no God, and if there is, I don't like him. That kind of thing. That is not as offensive. I was just trying to pick something that a lot of you would find offensive if you were back at city level. That's nothing. I think the worst thing, if I insulted you, if I said, so's your mama. The worst thing I could do is nothing compared to the fact that the nervous system is already wired up in everybody, from Buddha on up and down. You know, Earl Schreiber, everybody is wired up this way. I was trying to give you a full range there. I meant no offense to that great car painter, but that the nervous system is wired up to believe that other people's nervous systems can pick up some kind of extrinsic information, can pick up some kind of traumas from out there that there is an out there got nothing to do with my needs, because my needs I was born with. I'm not here to exaggerate, and I'm not trying to get more than my share, but there are things I and other right-thinking people need. But now some of these other people, I don't know, it's through some kind of psychological traumas, it's through some kind of idée fixe for some large group of people, individual delusion, perhaps they're having little brain hernias, I don't know what, but these people are hollering that they need so-and-so, they don't need it. Well, why don't they break down and tell the truth? They want it. But that's not the same thing as our needs. It is the division, again, if you can see it, that I mentioned, that one of them seems to be almost local in character. That my needs are mine. And that's true that other people have needs. I understand that other people have to have water and food. Okay. But still, it's sort of an individual, local proposition. But then when you start dealing with the other one of wants, then it goes from being a local proposition to wants are in some way picked up like interference on a radio. It's like that everybody is some sort of potential magnetic field, and they've picked up little iron filings here and there. That these other things that other people call wants, or oftentimes call needs, are simply some imaginary want they picked up, and now they're trying to pass it off on me and you, especially me, as a need, and it's not. Not too far related, or too far afield from that, I would suggest the two others is misguided and misled. Let me make it misled and misguided. And by that I refer to this. Misled would be that if you said, all right, so-and-so, this man over here, this friend of mine, this person I know, the way he's acting does not seem to be reasonable. It doesn't seem to be in his best interest. I don't agree with it. Perhaps you don't either. But I believe that we could trace the genesis of this, at least, to him being misled. Somebody he took up with, a book he read, a religious group, some cult he belonged to, his family. They were retrograde astrologers and chiropractors, or I don't know what. He was misled, as opposed to misguided. Misguided, the way in which I'm trying to get you to see the distinction, misguided is that some way, without any reference to outside influences, and most likely we'd be talking about ourselves, but at least the other person. We'll still use what seems to be an external example. He seemed to be misguided. The judgment, if we're talking about other people back in the city, the judgment does not seem to be that harsh, to say the very least. That there is something that is inexplicable, that the person seems to mean well. It is not that harsh of a judgment on the behavior of which we are disapproving. To say, well, he joined up with religious organization X. And I don't know if you've ever heard of them. It's sort of a new offshoot from another religion. And it seems to be in the beginning stages, and I can't tell if they're going to do anybody any harm, but I know it seems a little strange the way they're acting. I guess he and some of the other people involved with that right now are just, I don't know, a little misguided. But it seems to be, the way in which it is used in the city, the distinction I'm trying to show you before we overlap them, is that misled, when somebody's misled, the blame for this erroneous behavior is outside them. Right? I mean, that's clear enough. If you're misled, somebody tricked you, somebody lied to you, somebody deceived you on purpose, they misled you. As opposed to misguided. That seems to be that somebody, somehow, I guess we can take a vote whether you care to go into this, that an individual somehow, we can't see that he got misled, but he seems to be staggering around in unprofitable ways, that this erroneous journey, this erroneous actions he's taking, seems to be inspired internally. It seems to come within him. There's nobody we can see to lay the blame on. He's not being misled, he's misguided. By himself. Is that it? By himself. Well, he's misguided in his actions. Due to the great respect I have for silence, Could we have just a couple of seconds while you ponder that? There's obviously a great deal to ponder because there's such a distinction between being misled by other people and then you being misguided on your own. And so much for silence. Would anybody like to tell me how you get to be misguided? And don't talk to me about Gorders on the brain. Just an ordinary person, how do you come to be misguided? How? To what end do people believe that there is a difference? Well, this guy got misled. He was a friend of mine, I'll admit that. My brother. But he fell in with the wrong people, the wrong ideas, and he got misled. But my other brother, you may think, is just as weird, but nay. He means well. He is not dangerous. And I can't really apologize in the same way. I know some of the fault that you may find with his behavior and some of his ideas. He's just misguided. That there's no doubt there's a distinction there. What is it? Why does it appear to be so? And of course, as always, there is no such distinction, but why does there clearly appear to be so? Why does life arrange things when it doesn't have to? It doesn't even have to let these questions arise. But why is it there seems to be a distinct possibility someone's behaving in a way of which you disapprove, or perhaps some large segment of the populace disapproves, outside the mainstream, and the person can either be misled or simply misguided. How are you misguided? How does it come about? Is it all your fault when you're misguided? Well, certainly not, because in the city, in case I've never pointed this out directly, nobody is entirely at fault, right? How do you get to be misguided? Have you in fact become possessed? Nah, none of you are Catholic anyway, so you wouldn't believe in that, would you? And all of you are too smart to believe in some kind of trauma psychologically, since none of you on a good day have any psychological left. So how do you become misguided? Of course, I just said all that. I know plenty of you people's nervous system still believes in spirits and haunts and devils and psychological traumas. But pretending that you don't, how do you get to be misguided? Looking after your own best interest, trying your best to get ahead in life, at least trying your best to tread water, to stay afloat along the lines, if you have not been misled, if you do not fall in the former category, that nothing terrible, you have not been misled. There's nowhere that you can lay the blame. You're simply misguided. How did it come about? At what age did you begin to notice that you were misguided? Did it all happen at once, that somebody finally said, you know your problem, you're misguided? You went, Jesus. I knew it was something I thought was flat feet, but you're right, I'm misguided. Or did it just happen gradually? Did you begin to see the term? Did you begin to think about it? Did you begin to ask others, is there a possibility I'm misguided? And you notice that people would shift their eyes away when you would ask, like they didn't want to answer. And they just finally, you had no other recourse but to accept the possibility that you could be misguided. Where did it come from? If you weren't misled, if it wasn't your mother or father, some minister or rabbi or some cult that got hold of you and brainwashed you, if it wasn't that, then how did you get to be misguided? Is it something in the air, the water? Where does it come from? And yet there seems to be a real distinction, to say the least. Life makes people believe there is. And nobody ever questions, well, how does one become misguided if you're not misled? If there is such a clear distinction as my nervous system initially says yes, and I was not misled, there is not some force outside of me, some source outside of me that misled me, intentionally or otherwise. If it was not that, and I am simply misguided in my current beliefs, my current plans, my thinking of plans, I am misguided. How did this come about? Is there a conspiracy I didn't notice, all the way back to elementary school? Were they all plotting to misguide me? Who are they? Are they trying to misguide a whole generation? Did they take everybody at Cherry Blossom Elementary School and misguide us all the way from preschool all the way through the 7th grade? And by then we were completely brainwashed, we didn't know any better. If that was true, how have you passed more or less for being middle class and sane? Now it's got to be more subtle than that. But how did it happen? Who was in charge? How did you get misguided? I refer you back, before I push on to the next one, to the, I thought, somewhat interesting situation that just came to mind not before last, of man being the only creature that you can observe here through three-dimensional consciousness that has any feeling and belief that he can operate in ways not in his own best interest. There could be some connection. Another duo is what does it cost and what is its value? What is its quality? Now that I've said it, I don't know how far I'm going to go with it, but here we go for a minute. Can you see, first off, again, the distinction, the apparent, quite valid, binocular, binary division, in this case, that one of them would seem to be an individual, a local occurrence, situation, field of interest, and the other one would apparently require the participation of somebody else. That is, what's it cost? It's got to require somebody else, because the question is, you've got to have one other person to buy it from. Or else find out the cost is too much and steal it. But there's got to be somebody else involved. The cost of something could not interest a person singularly, right? If they were reasonable. The question, the and in this duo of what is its value, what is its quality. Now that, as opposed to the former, could be a singular local phenomenon. That is, what is its value to me? If again you were reasonable in a certain four-dimensional way. No. Put quite crudely and succinctly, what interest should a person have in anything unless it was over the quality of it? The value of it to me. Why else would you have it? It wouldn't be on the basis of, well, I got no interest, if the truth be known, in cars, but my neighborhood people will slobber, my imagination is. They'll hate me, they'll envy me if I go ahead and sell everything I got and mortgage my children and buy that Lamborghini and park it in the driveway. Just, if I can just hold off the payments for 6 months, the whole town, the whole office, it has nothing to do with quality. Not if that's the individual level. The only question then is, what's the damn thing cost? Because if somebody was doing it, I'm back to, you notice, city descriptions and terminologies, and the city people would believe this is a psychological problem, or at least a psychological ploy, which it's not. It's the nervous system still in operation, but they would say, all right, this is a situation of someone trying to build up their image, blah, blah, blah. You and I know how that conversation goes. It goes on inside of you. But if that is the case, then the question is always the first of this duo. What does it cost? Because if you were just reasonably a fripp, just a reasonably insane, or just a reasonably city-sane person, and you were trying to acquire an object, let's stay with that for a minute. You were trying to acquire a noun, an automobile, this $100,000 Lamborghini, and it meant nothing to you other than the fact of the apparent effect it would have on other people. That you could apparently look out there and other people go everything from slobbering over themselves to looking at you like you bastard. Under those conditions, you should hear your own nervous system. You know, all you got to do is just be middle-class sane. The quality of it means nothing if that's the reason you want it. Whether it be that or some expensive fur coat for a woman or some great gown directly from the little sewing busy fingers of E. Sant drop in the river. I know his name's dropping the same. The value doesn't enter into it. The only thing the question would have of that particular nervous system is, what does it cost? What does it cost? What does it cost? Now, did anybody follow that? Because my question now is, how much stuff do you have in the world? Let's start with objects. That's easy enough to talk about. How much stuff do you have in the world? How much stuff is it you want right now that you have any question about other than what does it cost? We'll take another second or so. May I suggest that you probably want nothing? unless you're going to sit there in your own privacy of your own nervous system, or you think it's the privacy of your own nervous system, and argue with this that, well, yeah, I worry about the cost. I'm having to save up to buy it. That's it. You answered it. The nervous system is not made to see it. You have not been misled by Madison Avenue. You're not being drugged by the merchants throughout the world, including Italy, who build automobiles. It's everybody's nervous system is tied into this phenomenon. And anything I suggest to you right now, anything you could think of that you want, given the duo I just gave you, what's its cost and what's its value, what's its quality, well, what's its value to me? The former is it. You take away the former and you got nothing. Does anybody hear that? If you are sitting around, I'm not making fun of a Lamborghini, but let's assume that you just all your life you wanted one. What is it you think about? Now you could say, well, now I know something about automobile mechanics. I've been in one, I've driven a Lamborghini, and I'm going to tell you, the quality of a Lamborghini will make anything America puts out. It'll make anything, in fact, that the British put out look like it was put together by Mattel. That the quality is, But what is it you think about when you think of you and the Lamborghini? Well, the cost. And you're going to get lost here if you don't watch it, because you can still say, well, yeah, I think about the cost because, well, you got to. I don't have $100,000 laying around, but it's the quality. That's the reason I want it. Well, what is it you think about when you hear the word Lamborghini, or whatever your dream is? What did you think about? The cost. Not the value of it. Any of you who are really good, I'm not going to stay here. Any of you who are really good, I could ask you this, and then you could turn to your nervous system, assuming it wouldn't lie to you, which is another story, and ask it and see what it says. If Lamborghinis were $5,000 instead of $100,000, just like they are, would you still want one? Well, I said you had to be good. You got to be real good. Not to answer that. You got to be real good to answer that and go, wow, and not care anymore. Because some of you can go, yeah, that's weird. And then as soon as you leave tonight, you still want one. You remember the question that I asked you several times over the last 6 months? Well, I've made it as a statement and as a question, and I'll let Kyrie play with it. About why would a reasonable person, why would a real revolutionist have anything, any possession that was not either useful or beautiful to him? And by beautiful, let's now turn that into it had some value to him. It's not useful, it's a painting. It's a book of color reproductions of Matisse. And you don't even know what it cost. You can't remember. You might have to save up back in college to buy the thing. Somebody might have given it to you. The cost is not it, and it serves no purpose. You got no friends to impress. The friends you got are all bricklayers and mud boys. They wouldn't know Matisse from a Mercedes. So there's nobody to impress. You didn't get it to impress anybody. You got in a drawer. You only think about it once or twice a year. You might be able to take it to used bookstore, as a matter of fact, and you might be able to get $20 for the thing. You finally maybe look down at the back flap, and somebody gave it to you, and somebody paid $75 for that. And you've had times that you might be going without, if not food, at least cigarettes and other important things, and yet you would not go sell that thing for $20. It is not the cost, and it's not useful to you. You do not need it to live. It's not part of your needs. But to you, it is beautiful. It has value. Now, besides me putting as rhetorical questions, etc., I have stated that a real revolution has got no business owning anything that is not useful or beautiful to him. Do you see any connection now between the duo of the cost of something? What's it cost? Its partner is, what's its value? Where does everybody seem to live insofar as what they think about acquiring something, or what they think in their dreams about acquiring something? We've got to turn there's a way in which these two columns I'm drawing, these sets from night before last and tonight, of what's the cost of something in one column and the other possibility, its dancing partner. What's its value? I ask you again, without me going into it in great detail tonight, can you see that in a certain way that these can also be, those columns headed, that which apparently can be done locally, is a local phenomenon, it can be done singularly, and that which apparently requires the participation, the existence in this one little field, this one occurrence of somebody else. And again, this is a beautiful example that you can begin to see it. The value of something you can ascertain. Now there's no word to describe all this because all this is unnatural cutting up of life. But the value of something you can ascertain. You can feel, you can entertain, you can determine, you can have a nonverbal awareness of, you can have a, not a non-interest, but a disinterest, a true impartiality, a true clinical disinterest into its cost. You can do that. That is the value of it, the quality of it. It could be a stone instead of me playing with a $75 French Impressionist book. You could find a stone, a seashell. It might be a bird that comes up in your backyard every day. Serves no purpose, it is not useful to you, and it has a value. It has a value that the way the human nervous system is wired up, for you and your people, I point out again, this is not a judgment, and life is not going to hell, and humanity is not wrong and this right. But in the city, that is, the human consciousness wired up to the level to where everybody is in touch, to where everybody is on the same Con Edison, Georgia Power, California Pacific Power grid, that everybody is in touch. You don't need the phone company to tell you, reach out and touch someone. At line level consciousness, everybody is wired up together. But also at that level, there is almost no appreciation of what I mean now by value in the city. You remember that I pointed out to you also, any of you who never found any sense in it, that a real hobby would be that which you could indulge in with no audience. That a real hobby is that if you play guitar, that you can sit there and play guitar, write your own songs, sing Dylan songs, do whatever it is, whether you consider yourself a player, a singer, a composer, and you can do it, and you sit down and do it until you're tired and you're finished and you put up your guitar and you go about your business. And that is it. It is no better, it could be worse, but it's certainly no better. You don't require that anybody, not only a nightclub audience, not speaking of that, but you don't require that your next door neighbor, it doesn't require that your girlfriend sit there and hear it. It is a solitary act. It has value to you. In the city, that's almost impossible at this level. Not because life is wrong, it's for other reasons. Keep everybody in line. Keep Mr. Hormel, keep the guides from getting very upset, wondering where their next meal is coming from. Right over the hill. No, that's just a joke. But in the city, do you understand what I'm pointing at? There, in a sense, is the reality of single, solitary conception of value is almost non-existent. I could say non-existent, but I sometimes refrain from saying such as that to keep some of you from just taking it as being the Word of God, figuratively speaking. For me just to make a statement, you say, oh, okay. Of course, it is absolute, but I just went ahead and said. Well, think about it. In the city, a lot of the things I've said and had Kairoot say that you might have taken as being some just rather abject attack on excessive talk, in the city people have to continually talk about what they do. They have to talk about their hobbies, they have to talk about seashells they found, they have to talk about their new guitar and the way they play it. If we were psychologists, that is, we were ordinary people, then we could say, well, it's a kind of necessary or needed reinforcement of others. We all need that. We're humans, we're pack animals, we're social creatures. We need to play guitar, and you can turn to somebody and go, huh? And then go, that ain't bad, you're getting better. And my voice, I can tell you've been practicing. Oh, good. And you play a little more. Look at the rock I found. You know, like this adds value to it because I found it. This seashell, I found it. To where your friends go, ooh, where'd you find that? Like maybe they're going to beat you up like Joseph and his coat and kill you and take your little seashell away. But you do understand it's not psychological. You may not understand that, but you do understand that there is a feeling like I possess this. It's not a Lamborghini, but it's a seashell, and I found it. It's mine. You're talking about the cost of it now. And part of the cost is that somebody else, apparently another nervous system, at least one other, has got to respond to your acquisition, to your possession. You're talking about the cost of it. Even though you didn't pay anything, you found it on the beach. You were on the beach? Yeah, I was back down in Naples. You go to Naples, I thought Naples was very expensive. Well, you got to know what you're doing. But I thought a lot of their beaches down there were private. Well, still, you got to know what you're doing. You got any friends down there that are rich? Got any of those big condos? Well, I know a few people. But, and you just walked when were you down there? I just saw you. What, in the middle of the week? How could you take off from work? You're talking about the cost of it. This is not an attack on work. It's not an attack on vacation. It's not an attack certainly on Naples. But you're talking about the cost of the damn thing. You're not talking about the value of it. Anytime you've got two people discussing something, you're talking about the cost of it. In the city you are. You're not talking about the value of it. If one of the individuals was a revolutionist, or it would be, he doesn't have to talk. If it's got value, there's nothing to say. He or she's got it, they like it. It has value. They find it beautiful, if not useful, and they don't need to show it to anybody. They may even know that if I did show this to people, half the people would go, boy, that's a great hobby, collecting rocks. Wow. You know. I am duly impressed. Another percentage of them could be jealous. The thing is, if it's got value and you understand that, there's nothing else to say. There is nothing to discuss. And if you do discuss it, if your nervous system has got to get some other nervous system to respond, you're talking about the first column. What's it cost? What was its cost to you? Now, since I'm getting already, since not before last, I figure I'm about 10 hours behind when I started this duo thing. And tonight, I'm about 20 hours even further behind. So, let's skip rocks and seashells and Lamborghinis. How about that which people claim as being their own characteristics? That is, I'll tell you what kind of guy I am. Play a little guitar. Sing not as good as Dylan. Sing, some people say I sound a little bit like Dylan. Plus, I don't have a Lamborghini, but I got a, do you even remember a TR4? Right before it was a TR3, I got one in pretty good shape. Plus, living with a girl's a painter. That's the kind of guy I am. You know what you're discussing? You're discussing the cost of the kind of guy you are when it didn't cost you anything to start with. But when people talk about themselves, when people say, I'll tell you the kind of guy I am, and you tacitly, if you're not going to run off and leave, you go, okay, and they've got about 3 or 4 minutes, and then they got to listen to what kind of guy you are. But what you're discussing is not the value of it, not the quality of it, you're discussing the cost of it. Yeah, I play a little guitar, another person goes, geez, I always wanted to play something, but I just hadn't had the time. In other words, the cost that it must have taken on your part to set aside some part of your busy, busy life and to practice guitar. Whereas if somebody can play guitar pretty well, they didn't hardly practice worth shit. They didn't. So, but now you've discussed the cost. The guy says, I play a little guitar. And the guy goes, wow, I'm impressed. Then the guy says, oh, that was my car. Did you see outside? I don't think I've ever driven this before. That green TR3, do you even know what they are? The guy goes, yeah, my older brother said that he knew a guy back in college, back in the 50s, that had a TR. He said that was one of the, right after the MGs, they started importing the guys brought them in after World War II. Boy, you're discussing the cost again. How about those things are expensive now? There's the obvious one. You're not discussing the value of even what the guy's saying. He's not just talking about his possessions, because he's talking about what kind of guy I am. And he's helping identify it by the possessions. I'll repeat again to you new people. Believe it or not, this has nothing to do with psychology. That's paint by the numbers. That's connect the dots. You've heard all that information before. I'm just using it as a springboard. I'm using that as the surface place to grab life by its little head and read the bumps. So the person is apparently describing not their possessions, but the kind of guy I am. They can discuss their love life. They can say, well, I was doing pretty well in life, and then my first wife died in a car wreck. And I don't know, I sort of had, I hate to call it a nervous breakdown, but I started drinking too much in my business. I ignored it, and a couple of guys stole from me. And so I really hit the skids. But I pulled myself out. I'm back in AA now, or I'm in AA, and I've started a new little business on the side. I've got my job at IBM. All of that you're discussing, apparently, you don't understand, you're apparently discussing the cost of what it took to get you to where you are. But that says nothing about the value of it. Does anybody know why? Because it's got no value. But what's really death-defying, what's the trapeze act that you wouldn't believe if you could see it through this way up here, is not only does it have no value, it's got no cost. But you're apparently discussing the cost. You never discuss the value of what you are. You discuss the cost of it. Although people say things like, well, my first 3 wives all left me for musicians, and it really made me feel bad for a while. But I feel like perhaps I'm a better person for it. Yeah, I used to be an alcoholic, and I stopped drinking until my 3rd wife left me. I went back to drinking, but now I got in AA, and there's no doubt I probably drank up or snorted $100,000 worth of booze or cocaine in my life, and wrecked my health. My children won't speak to me. My mother died cursing my name. But you know what? I feel like perhaps I'm a stronger, better person for having gone through that. They say that, and some of you have got variations. You don't have to believe I'm talking about out there. Some of your own nervous system has done variations of that based upon your own limited past life sins and experiences. And you can apparently are talking about the value of you, that I'm a better person for having gone through such as this, for at least having survived it. And you're not, because you don't feel better. Nobody does. What you're doing is discussing the cost of it. And everybody knows that on this planet, except nobody knows how to make this division. They're not supposed to. But you're not talking about the value. You're not saying, well, here I am. I now run my own church, my own business. And let me tell you what I had to go through to get to this point. How the gods helped me, the cosmic forces. The quality of my life, I am so much happier now that I am a Christian, now that I am a Buddhist, now that I am a reformed alcoholic. It's not true. They don't feel any better. There is no value in it. At line level consciousness, wherein everybody is hooked up back in the city that I was describing, everybody's on the same party line, nobody takes that. Nobody's impressed. You have to pretend you are. You're in the midst of this play, you can't get out of the auditorium. Sometimes you're on the stage for a little bit, or sometimes you're in the bathroom taking a leak, and apparently you got an audience of somebody else says, how you doing? But most of the time, you're in the audience, and you can't leave. And so people on the stage say, I was a drunk, I ran around my wife, I mistreated my children, and then the gods called me back to my forefathers' religion, I straightened up, and now I'm a better person. And you can't help it. You might as well be a muppet that somebody got their hand up your knickers and they make you go, wow! And you punch your wife or somebody next to you and you say, is that a quality guy or not? Talk about a guy that used his life worthwhile, and it's still somebody's hand up your back and you go, yeah, yeah, and you know it's not true. Again, it's that kind of unrecognized mockery that the whole audience on this planet goes, wow, isn't that something? And you ain't impressed. I don't care whether you're a drunk, whether you've never been a drunk, whether you're a Christian, you're an atheist, you hear somebody else's story and them talking about what a quality guy I am. But how I was not always this way, but through my own efforts or through the help of the gods and the fates, my wife, my beautiful, wonderful wife, and my little children, and my mother and father, and everybody goes, wow, isn't that something? And nobody feels like, wow, isn't that something? Because everybody knows on a level that is getting into this non-hostile mockery that is the audience applauding all this, you understand that nobody is talking about the value of themselves or the value of their life or the value of what they're done. All they can talk about is the cost of it. You don't have to just take my word or believe it has some value just because you laugh in that nervous laughter that may someday attract the attention, I might add, to you who believe in astrology, that may attract the attention of Venus and it might kill you for doing that. The reason you're laughing is you know that what they're discussing is the cost. And look into your own nervous system when somebody says, well, for years I was real lazy, I didn't have the right appreciation of my family, and I lost a business, and I drank too much. Let us say that you got a similar life situation. You're not impressed with the quality of what he's done, even when life is making you, whoever it is, making you applaud and go, yeah, yeah. The only thing you're calculating, look at your own nervous system. You don't have to listen to me. Your own nervous system, all you're doing is calculating the cost. Somebody says, yes, I used to weigh 300 pounds and I lost 200 pounds and you can too. I'll tell you the effort it took. And you're sitting out there feeling like you're overweight. You don't feel that some quality has been obtained by that person. You don't feel that there's some particular value in their effort. The only thing you think about, the only thing you feel is, God damn, the cost of doing that. That is the effort it took, the cost. That's all anybody thinks about. Because in the city, there is no value. One thing is worth as much as something else. Now, since I'm about 30 hours behind, having done that, now how about, instead of worrying about you being an audience, now back to the good state of man, you're your own audience. You are the people and you're the guy on stage or the woman on stage. Now how about those things in you that you tell yourself are admirable characteristics? The division you make in yourself, the contour, the frontier you draw between what you do that you approve of and that which you don't approve of. One of them to you, all you think about is what's it cost to change this. The other one would be, what's the value of this? And which one do people pay attention to? It's not the latter. Nobody would change if it had to do with quality. Man would not be the way he's wired up. If I may play with justice and reality, which why not? If man was not wired up as he is, he would not try to change if it was based upon do this and the quality will be better. It will have value to you. That's not it. It's on the base, apparently, the basis of cost efficiency. I'd be worth more. I'd get more. And since that won't work, life's arranged it to where that's the only reason that people will try to do it. If that didn't make sense before I leave this, remember this. I've warned all of you that the only purpose in doing this, from one sense, is it's got no purpose. So work on that. That is the ultimate, once you can see it, that is the ultimate quality of it. Because if it had a purpose, then it'd be simply, well, I'll save up for it. What's it cost? What would it cost for this to happen? What would it cost? All right, if I said I wanted to be in such and such way, that I wanted to have such and such characteristics or know such and such things, if you know what's involved, what would it cost me to get like that? As long as that's the question, there is no answer. I accept any answer you want. Oh, well, it costs you 7 years and everything you own. That's too much. Okay, 2 years and half of what you own. That's better. Okay. You got your choice. Because you're talking about the apparent cost of it. Plus, if I may go back far enough and drag in one more thing that some of you every now and then see, and none of you see a great significance to it, it doesn't appear at the time I do it. Nothing actually costs anything. I mean, if you believe there's out there, then you believe somebody produces goods. That is, you believe that somebody actually prints up money. And don't tell me that they print up money in Washington. I know that. But you believe that there's something outside this closet. There's something outside this auditorium that we're all in. You didn't pay to get in. You feel like you did. You can't even pay to get out. But everybody is switching goods around. You're passing money, Deutschmarks, pesos, and you feel like, well, somebody's got more than somebody else. It's just being shifted around. In other words, nothing costs anything. Sometimes some of you go, oh, as I said, and I've never pressed it, and I don't ever see much signs of a lingering effect on you. I know it seems like that the banks, it's just being shifted around. In other words, nothing costs anything. Sometimes some of you go, oh, as I said, and I've never pressed it, and I don't ever see much signs of a lingering effect on you. I know it seems like that the banks and the loan companies and your landlord, it seems like that stuff you got goes somewhere else. But remember this, you didn't always have the stuff you give them. You got it from somewhere else. It's just all the little piggies and little cows were all standing in line, and they just pass the stuff back and forth. Well, here, take this, and then somebody hands you some. But to believe otherwise, to not be able to analyze this in a more complex manner, is that you do believe, nobody analyzes, but you do believe that goods, wealth, that is, that which takes up for the cost of things, that in somewhere it's out there, that you can go find it. Well, it's probably, of course, that banking conspiracy trying to keep you down, keep you poor, but it's like it is out there, and it's not only outside me and my bank account. You ordinarily don't analyze it this way, but to you, it's outside the general flow of humanity. That wealth is something out there that you get your hands on. So everyone is made to believe that the cost of something is actually the value of it, that the cost of something is it, whereas nothing actually costs anything. That's why it has no value. Well, let me jump to where I was ending up night before last, into the great duo, the ever popular duo of, it wasn't Smith and Dale, was it? I knew that was before your time. Excuses and reasons. Can you see, after what little I said, and you've had 2 days, anybody who wanted to ponder it, or anybody who thought they got anything at the moment out of it, again, I point out to you the possibility of having these columns. Over here it says reasons, over here it says excuses, but it can also have subheadings into these, that one of these would seem to be almost a singular possibility, a local occurrence, a local experience, and another one could not be so. It's got to have the participation, got to have the existence of another party, other parties. To begin with, excuses, well, let's say reasons, at their very best position would be an acceptable to you, defendable to you, valuable to you answer as to why you did or did not do something. And you could even answer it to yourself. You could even ask the question and answer it to yourself. It could be a solitary, that here it is, that you wake up and it's 10 o'clock and you promise somebody that you would meet them faithfully to lend them some money or to lend them your car to help them do something. At 9 o'clock, and here it is, and you're overcome by, I think in the city they still call it guilt of some kind. Your nervous system is now vibrating, your molecules are acting up in a way that you find distasteful. But why did you oversleep? Your speaking molecules are now going to have something to say to your own hearing molecules. You don't need anybody else. It can explain why. Well, for one thing, how about this right quick? The person you were going to meet, that you're supposed to meet at 9 o'clock to lend your car to, they're the same ones that kept you up last night to 2 o'clock, sitting there talking about his old girlfriend and how much money he owed. If it hadn't been for that, he knows I normally get in bed early. In other words, I've got a reason. When it falls into the column of what seems to be excuses, the other partner of this, you're now dealing with more than a solitary, more than a local phenomenon. Because you would make no excuse. No one would, unless there was at least how many people involved? 7. 2. 2. See, you were 5 off as usual. There's got to be 2 people, or the existence, the phenomenon of excuses would never occur, because nobody gives himself an excuse. You give yourself a reason. And of course, all right-thinking people in the world, which at any given time is constituted by 50% of the people, except 50% of the people see themselves as being 100% of the people. That is, when you give somebody else the response as to why or why you did not do something, you don't ever give anyone else an excuse. You give them also a reason. It's only the other people. It's only out there that will not reciprocate and play the game correctly. They won't give you good reasons. They give you excuses for their behavior. That is about where we left off night before last. But can you see my addition of that? Again, this falls into the column, if you can see the purpose of this at all, or try and remember it, that one of these duals, of all these sets I'm giving, one would apparently be capable of operations as a local, solitary phenomenon of just you. That you can just talk to yourself of the reason why you did something, the reason why you failed to do something. You can, in fact, well, you do not deal with excuses. Not if you're the middle class, the bell curve, or the city. You don't give yourself excuses. You got reasons. If we now go into dual parties, you don't give other people excuses. You give them the reasons you did or didn't do something. But then, when you reverse the flow, other people give you excuses But in any case, when you're dealing with the column of excuses, you're dealing with a multiple locale phenomenon. You're dealing with at least two people. Two people. Can you also see a connection between that of needs and wants? Well, if there's any connection between what you just said, then it would have to be this. Reasons in life aren't needed, or we couldn't communicate. Things couldn't happen. I couldn't even deal with myself. We just simply, things would fall apart. But now excuses, that doesn't have anything to do with necessity. Excuses are just things that people want. That is, they want a way out. They want to be forgiven. They want their stupidity, they want their laziness overlooked. Excuses have nothing to do with the necessities in life, wherein reasons do, because there is a good reason for any good, valid act. But for any inexcusable, foolish act, there is no reason. All you got is excuses. How about cost and value? Well, a reason does have some value. It's got to. Science even deals with reason. But excuses? No value to anyone. None. You can talk about the cost, the humiliation of you giving me that excuse and making a fool of yourself when I don't believe it. The cost that you get a reputation as being a liar, being an idiot, being a weasel, because all you do is offer excuses. So there you got the cost of it. Let's get dirty. That means let's get more obtuse, right? I didn't say that. You ought to be able to hear this. There is another phenomenon that happens in life that you should really be interested in, the TWE, to what ends is life up to. Whenever there is presented to humanity, certainly not me doing it, but the phenomenon in the city that things seem continually divided up into twos. They'll agree to that in the city, ordinary people. Good and evil, right and wrong, up and down, proper and improper, civil, uncivil. Now let's include, just for a joke, my duos for the last couple of nights, me pointing out all these things like wants and needs. Men are wired up at the ordinary level that they will take seriously only those possible guidelines, those choices of behavior that apparently have moral contours to them. There apparently has to be, I say apparently, there's no question, that's just the way people take it. If there is not morality to a binary possibility, to guidelines affecting, should people deal in excuses or reasons? If there is no sense of morality to the question given, to the possibilities posed, no one will take it seriously. Well, we've got 2 or 3 people there. The ramifications, I was trying to get you to see without me bulldozing it tonight, even if it was possible. You can't present to ordinary consciousness and say, all right, in this area of human life and behavior, do you see that things should be looked at this way and that way? Nothing spooky, nothing metaphysical or spiritual, just, do you realize that people could look, the kind of responses they give when they're asked why did they do something, why did they fail to do something, do you understand, would you agree to me that we could divide up all responses either into excuses or reasons? And ordinary people say yeah. And if they said yeah, it's on one basis. I would never have to say the word morality. It's on the basis that one of those possibilities is more moral than the other one. Nobody sees the tentacles of this. The human nervous system will not tolerate it, won't even hear it. It'll just be garble. It'll just be noise in the background. It'll just be some foolish comment that somebody made of presenting the kind of questions that I keep presenting to you about to what end is life doing this? Why are things arranged in this manner? If I tried to do that, those same areas, any area, but the same ones I've done to you, to ordinary people, that is to if I was just talking to your level of consciousness, back at the city line level of consciousness, your feeling is immediately. That is, if you find any of them that sounded serious, like that's, and you can't analyze it, you just go, yeah, well, like, go ahead, I like that, let me hear that. You already have a sense of morality about it, or you wouldn't be wired up to find it to be of any pertinence. It has to have a sense of morality to it. Well, I'm telling you, this is a good one. If you're not hearing it, at least try and remember it. There has to be a sense of morality, or humanity is not wired up to seriously entertain what appears to be any guidelines affecting behavior or any questions. These kind of things I'm doing about pointing out the possibility you could act this way or that way, or you could think this way or that way, or you could speak this way or that way. Ordinary consciousness will not see any possible pertinence or profit or value to this unless, as soon as you hear about it, there is a sense of morality. That is, that one of them is morally better than the other. Do you see where that leaves the human nervous system? It will entertain no inquiries. It will not entertain what appears to be even possibly new information unless, not because the speaker, not because the source says so, but you immediately have to feel. And nobody ever analyzes it. Never. This is the first time it's ever been said in words on this planet. There has to be an immediate sense in your own nervous system. Doesn't matter your background, your religion, your race, your sex, nothing. Your nervous system, personally, immediately, as soon as it, even before I finish the sentence, me or anybody, you have the sensation of morality. That one of them is morally, not religiously, one of them is morally superior to the other one. You might even not know which yet, but as soon as you hear the question, you haven't even considered it. There has to be the unanalyzed, the unspoken, the immediate, undeniable. And all this is just superfluous. I'm talking like you had some choice. You have the sensation of morality. If it's not, you don't hear it, or you sleep through it. It's like an ad on TV between the acts in the movie. Do you see where that leaves humanity? No? Do you understand, since I'm on sense of morality, that along with this, the sense of morality, involves again the participation, the existence of other people. Morality is the cost of something. The sense of morality with humans, and this is not a comment for you and your people on morality, on the breakdown of religion. It's not the breakdown of anything. It's just your flawed vision. But the sense of morality that people have in the city is what's going to be its cost. What is its cost to me? The obvious one, what will people think of me? Will I lose business if this gets out? Would I lose friends if they knew about this? Did I believe this? Did I behave in this way at times? How about the other one I've been asking once or twice or three times lately about people once you get off the farm, literally and figuratively in your nervous system, out of the feral, dealing only with basic needs and not wants. Once you get off the farm, why is it nobody seems capable of working alone? How about this? How about this for a wrap up this paragraph? Do you realize what this means, I just pointed out? That you can't even be fucking moral by yourself? You got to have at least somebody else, or you can't even have a sense of morality. I don't mean, did any of you hear that? Some of you did. It's not simply, will somebody find it out? You can't even have a sense of morality unless there is, as far as you're concerned, the participation, the existence, the importance of somebody else. You would not be moral. There'd be no sense of morality in a local phenomenon. Because in that, if it was, it'd have some value. It doesn't. It just has cost. It's just the phone bill being tied up to everybody else's nervous system and the pre-wired way back in the city. But it requires, to be moral, requires a committee, at least two people. All excuses are moral. Reasons have some value. And in the city there is nothing with value. In the city there is no reason. There are excuses. Me asking several times, do you see where this leaves humanity? Let me put it to you, we're running out of tape, a little more bluntly. A real revolutionist would need simply the pertinent info. And under these conditions, in this phenomenon, in this particular locale of life's body, his operational slogan would have to be, spare me the sermons. But do you hear me? I'm not talking about some guise, some affected behavior that you would pick up by saying, hey, don't preach to me morality. It's not that. You got to have your nervous system operating in another way to where it is not automatic that any information that does not strike you immediately as having some sense of morality to it, it's got to be the point that you don't discount it. Contraire. You realize that on the basis that things are moral, that there's a sense of morality even about information, that on that basis you now know everything that you can know because you're wired into the same telephone system, the same grid power system as everybody else in the city. Your nervous system knows everything they know if you know how to access it. You know it all. The sense of morality to it, just from one view, this is just one of the possible views, one way in which I can sketch it, is what keeps you from seeing anything else. Not that do you hear me? It's not that you hear some information and you say, wait a minute, that information can't be true because it goes against my morality. You're way off. Jesus. You're even past New Jersey, if that's what you think I'm saying. It has to be that your response to whatever you hear, to whatever you might be able to begin to perceive yourself, if it still is locked into the immediate sense of morality, and not morals in a religious sense, not from some cultural sense, but that one is morally better than the other, then you are locked into that grid level of seeing and understanding. Because there is no sense of morality to any new information. There is no sense of morality, not right or wrong. It's not that your sense of morality is wrong and you should do otherwise, and now suddenly begin to go out nude and wave your private parts at taxi cabs and drink and do whatever your religion says you shouldn't. It's not that. It's that if you still have a sense of morality, that new information, possibilities of behaving, has a sense of morality that just strikes you that one, for me to bring up the subject, so there's this and there's that. You go, yeah, all right, I got you. At the ordinary level, the reason you say I got you and you got some interest is there's this unrecognized, unanalyzed sense of morality to it is the reason it's got you. That is, it's got your interest, but it's got you another way. It's got you locked and you can't ever see anything else. You've got to find a place where it is true. You don't say it, of course, and it's not sarcastic, it is not mockery, but it's got to be a place of, hey, spare me the sermons. That you understand there are no sermons. The people in the city are preaching no sermons. There is nothing to be learned about a sense of morality in the city. Everybody's at the same level. We're absolutely running out of tape. I got to do an excursion, but I was going to... First, when I walked in the room, I was going to start this evening right where I'm ending. That it is part of the difficulty. Perhaps I'll pick it up next time a little bit more, of hearing some of this. It's not just hearing as weird as I can speak sometimes, but the difficulty in always hearing this at all times in life's body is that there is no inherent sense of morality to it. It's not that it's immoral. All of you know that's been around here for a while, but now I'm not preaching trying to show you some sense of to go against your morality. You got none. It's not immoral. It's not immoral, but the difficulty of ever hearing this is that your nervous system will not respond to things. That's the way life is wired up. That there is not an immediate, undeniable, unanalyzed, unquestioned sense of morality to what a person starts talking about. It always sounds like we're talking about two possibilities of the way things are and the way they could be, or what you should do and what you shouldn't do. But to hear any of it, there has to be a sense of morality. If I say, all right, the most important thing in conclusion tonight, or this is the final conclusion, you'll never see me again, I got to tell you this. The final thing you've got to understand, the very things I've been thinking about, the things I've been talking about, you've been dreaming about, that you hope this was, I got to tell you this. I'll tell you how to get it further. I got to go, I'll never come back again. You cannot eat leafy vegetables. You do here. There is no sense of morality to that. And therefore, it's just ridiculous. You heard what I said. You wait for me to say something else. If I said that and left, you'd finally think, well, I always thought he was crazy. Or he got crazy right there at the end. But nobody would take it seriously because there is no sense of morality to it. We got a little excursion. Run the people out of the room. We're back rolling. All right, I say an excursion. I was going to make this at one time an excursion, but let's put it down as a different something. I've got so few. I shouldn't have to make excuses. I don't care how many I got. Here it is, another rule amongst the few we got. I made an excuse again amongst the few we got. Boy, am I big-hearted. Put this one down with no alcohol, no drugs, no hostility amongst the group. The ones I have really done, the exercise, if you can physically do it every day. This is not excursion, this is a rule. And when I go this far, you have got to, if you're reasonable at all, believe that there is much more to it, and it has a very deep possibility of setting up conditions much more conducive. Blah, 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 blah. Thank you for my view. Here it is. I do not want any of you, it's just a rule from now on, I do not want you to discuss money in any way with anybody, starting now, period. Now, ways in which you have to, you people got to know how to handle that. And sometimes you got to say, you know, the price is not marked on this, something you got to have. But do not discuss money. Do not discuss the cost of things with anybody. And real quick, well, something some of you might find of some interest because some of you may miss it. For years, I have used in casual conversation with you people. Some of you have been around for a while, and then some of you that I just first get to know you after you've been around long enough, 2 or 3 years, and I decide you might be worth, I find out your name, and I'll ask you something. And not just you newer people, but I've been doing this for years. You got a new car. And I'll look inside your car and you got a new radio. I say, oh, what kind of radio? And you say, oh, that's a new JBL. They got on the auto audio. And I say, oh, yeah? And I'll say, what'd you pay for it? I do that a lot. And it's a chance, the way in which I used it crudely, it was not a trick of some kind. But it's like a casual conversation. It was a way to say that I'm doing good. Either I'm doing good that I can afford to buy this, or hey, that thing is supposed to be $350, and the guy sold it to me out of the back of his truck down on Elm Street for $100. And I can say, $100, boy. So, if any of you miss that, from now on, you're going to have to miss it. Because I'm not going to do it anymore with you. It was just I could have done about other things, but that is a fairly common denominator. A way to kind of little icebreakers even amongst us. So I'm going to stop it in case any of you miss it. I want you to stop that, period, with anybody. Do not discuss money, period. I don't care what your conditions are. I don't care what bargains you got. I don't care how you got cheated. I don't care what people ask you. Either, of course, here in the group, if you're going to stop it, then you people don't do it to each other. But out in life, your mother, your father, anybody, people at work, do not discuss money in any way with anybody from now on, never again. Now, I mean, this is the rule the same way as drinking. Now, if I walked in a bar and saw you drinking, that I would be within my rights to tell you not to come back. Don't let me walk in there and see you much less drinking, which I might overlook once, and hear you there talking about money with somebody. Don't do it. Don't do it. Maybe I'll go into it a little more, maybe I won't. Do not do it. Those of you who to this are born, you'll like it. Some of you should like it right now. Or at least think about it on the way home and you should like it. Don't ever discuss money with anybody ever again. And you people out of the city, we still got the safe rolling? The tape's running out of the city, folks. It's going to run out while I stand here talking about it running out, is it not? Well, it'll stop me from starting this and then have to stop in the middle. So the kid said, I want some ice cream. Huh? I've been picking on the people back here in the city. Some of you picked up on pieces of tape about people not being responsible for things I gave them to do. And I was thinking that really my greatest wish, the way I should do things, either here, both here and out of the city, is arranged to where I do every little bitty thing. Everything. Think about that. I wish I could arrange it. Maybe I will, even in other cities. That except just what is physically impossible for me to do, that I do everything else. Is the tape over? I guess it's over.